Raven has been working in the nonprofit sector since she was in elementary school. Organizations focused on education all the way to healthcare. She was actually just played a very moving role in the production for Color Girls, so I've considered suicide when the rainbow is enough. She is studying political science right now, as well as applied psychology, and she has a special interest in community advocacy and social policy. So give it up for Raven.
Thank you so much. Alrighty, so today we're gonna have a discussion on empathy. And I figure the best way we can have that discussion is to first decide what it isn't. Now, empathy is not sympathy. Sympathy is an affinity, association, or relationship between persons or things wherein whatever affects one similarly affects the other. So basically, you do have the ability to feel bad for people. Like, that's easy. It also isn't saying, I see where you're coming from. Usually when I hear this phrase, it's usually preceded by a but or however, and I feel in my mind that that completely negates what you're trying to say if you say, I see where you're coming from. Now that we've had that discussion, we can say what empathy is. Empathy is the imaginative projection of a subjective state into an object so that the object appears to be infused with it. The action of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experiences of another, of either the past or present, without having the feelings, thoughts, and experience fully communicated in an objectively explicit manner. As my favorite author, John Green, would put it, imagining others complexly. Their feelings, their thoughts, their rationale, their actions, as if you were that person themselves. Now, I'm really into political science, philosophy, everything. I love John Locke and I love Thomas Hobbes. They both talk about the state of nature. And in the state of nature, everything descends into chaos, not because people are inherently evil, although Hobbes would argue otherwise, but not that discussion right now. He would argue otherwise, but it is because everyone is equal. Everyone is equal of getting the same resources by any means necessary. Then Aristotle accounts in the Ethics. He has several virtues, courage, honesty, everything like that. But the last virtues he focuses on are social virtues, friendship, wit, those types of things. So I draw the conclusion that if we're all equal and our most important interactions are social ones, then it should be our capacity for those interactions that are the most important. So I have to go over here. So this clip is from a very popular TV show, What Would You Do? I pulled it up already. Okay. So basically the setup for the situation is they're in Texas. It's a lesbian family, and they're actors. Their waitress is also an actress, and basically she's messing with them a lot. And one person basically comes to the rescue, and you can see what he says about it.
Stay silent. And that's the worst thing.
Which is why our gay actress
I just wanted to thank you guys so much.
is so personally touched by the support she's seeing.
Frankly, you were acting. This wasn't real. And you're in tears.
It's real for me. This is my everyday life. So when they're...
So that gentleman says that silence is our greatest failing as human beings. And so what does that say about our empathy? That says we don't have very much of it, because whenever we see someone enduring an injustice, we say, well, that's not me. And therefore, we don't jump in. And that's the heart of our discussion today. How do we encourage empathetic tendencies? Now, one question is, are we naturally empathetic, or do we have to practice? I believe with anything that we deem to be good or evil, you have to practice it. So one of the ways we can encourage empathy is actually through schools. Let's see. Here you can see that budgets are being cut across the country for schools, and the first thing that's always to go is the arts programs, because they say, well, they don't need that, and that's not practical. And it basically undervalues art, and art is very important. So when they cut these programs, they really don't know what they're doing. This is from a study that basically analyzes what arts does for the brain. These are all the areas and all the capacities that empathy and that is affected by, and all the ways that the arts trains it. So basically, whenever they cut programs, this is what they're cutting. The teaching of the arts stimulates areas of the brain that promote and facilitate empathy, and more so, these functions last well into adulthood. It also helps academically and improves self-esteem. Now back to a previous point, undervaluing of art. I really loved law. I loved politics, I loved everything about it. And I was gonna go to law school, I joined the mock trial team, I interned at a premier law firm in the city of Chicago. But I hated being in mock trial, I had to leave the team, and when I got through with my internship, the very last day, I was just so happy that it was over. And then I realized that I was just really just hoping for the pieces just to fall into place for me. Yes, one day I will love doing this and I will apply to law school and I will like it. So I kept chugging along because going back to my first love, which was theater, was certainly not an option. Theater wasn't a practical skill, I couldn't take it into the workforce, and I certainly couldn't help people by standing on a stage. Long story short, I had a life-changing experience. And where did that happen? On study abroad. Proven, all life-changing experiences happen on study abroad. So we were in Shakespeare's birthplace of Stratford, and we saw a series of plays, and I said, I can't do this to myself anymore. I couldn't afford to not be empathetic towards myself anymore. And so during the first act of As You Like It, I said, I am going to be in theater. Now, that's the easy part, deciding. The not easy part is telling people. So I decided, like any other rational person, I would post on Facebook, to just test run. So it was something like that awkward moment when you realize you've wasted 3 years of your life, something like that. So, it's because I didn't want to tell my family, they were basically all depending on me to be their lawyer when I got out of law school. And my mom was always depending on me to become an attorney because, she saw me going straight to the top. So, I posted this thing on Facebook, and what I didn't know at the time, and what I should have known, is that Facebook can't keep secrets. Can't do it. Facebook is worse than a girl's bathroom, okay? So, news got back to my mom first before I could tell her, and she felt insulted that, I had told Facebook before I told her. And, she will argue to the end of days that, the only reason she's at Boston College is because of me. And she should have told me first. And I agree with the first part. She stayed up with me long nights, helping me study, everything. But I don't agree with the second part. And the reason that is because one of my favorite TED Talks is by Ash Beckham, and she argues that a closet is no place for a person to live. Whether it be a gay closet or whether it be my theater closet, that's no place for a person to live. And what my mother didn't realize is that I was in my own closet clutching a grenade that I didn't want to throw. And so the best way for me to throw that grenade and get out of that closet was to just post it on Facebook. Get the support of my friends. And she will never know how I felt writing to her in an email in the middle of the night, crying because I felt like I had failed. So there is a happy ending to that story. My mom came to see not one, not two, but 3 performances of For Color Girls. So, she was there, she was supporting me, and I still love her to pieces. So that's just a microcosm of what happens when empathy fails or when empathy wins. And so I want to go up and take it to the next level, society. This is a story of a mother who left her children in the car so she could go do an interview. This happened somewhere in Arizona. So she had been homeless, she could barely feed her kids, and this was the only opportunity on the horizons for her. And so she left her children in the car, rolled down the windows a little bit so they could try to get some air. And of course the police showed up and said, "You're arrested." She has 2 felony counts of child abuse. This story is about a mother who went to go steal groceries for her children. She had 3 children. And what happened when the arresting officer showed up, she goes, okay, looked into her background, found no prior crimes, and she writes her a citation and goes, do you have any food in your house? And instead of arresting her and hauling her off to jail, she just gives her a citation and buys her $100 worth of groceries. So the difference between these two situations is clear. The prosecutors in the first case clearly decided that this woman was not worthy of being a mother and threw away the key. They didn't ask themselves how it felt to be her or how it felt to be their children, being homeless for Lord knows how long and hungry, only to have your mother snatched away from you. So the woman in the second scenario, this one, she clearly had practiced being empathetic. And that's what Aristotle argues, is that any good tendency you have to practice it. And that's the only way it's going to be fulfilled, and that's the only way it's going to be functional. So to close up, I'm going to go to an even bigger scale, history. This is a famous poem about the Holocaust. First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. The point here is solidarity, to put people into positions in which they don't make bad decisions ever again. And that is the point of really using empathy in a practical sense. Why did this person do what they did? How did they do it? And how can we make it so it never happens again? So history has shown that any social change has happened from the civil rights movement to the impending conclusion of the gay rights movement. It started with a few select people saying, I identify with you, even though you are not me. When they said this, they were saying, when someone does wrong onto someone else, it is almost as if they have hurt me. And that is not okay, because a person is above all a human being, just like me. Whenever someone is silent when they see an injustice, whether it be a homeless person on the street or someone being bullied because of their sexuality, that is an empathetic failure. As we are raising this next generation, we have to do right by them and teach them how to properly be engaged and empathetic to their world. This will mean to encourage their play and to encourage them to pursue some art form that will cultivate their capacity to think as if they were another human being. Now for us, because hope for us is not completely lost, the next time you see something you deem to be out of the ordinary, especially if it's a person or a social situation, I want you to ask yourself 2 questions. Why and how? Why is something the way it is, and how did that person get to be that way? This is a small act in empathy, and hopefully that act will become bigger and bigger until we are all changing the world. I would also like to end with another famous quote. I just wish we could get along like we used to in middle school. I wish that I could bake a cake made out of rainbows and smiles, and we'd all be happy. Good night, everyone.